We now go above and beyond the headlines with incoming Press Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles on new and pending appointees, Marcos's upcoming inauguration, and the push to accredit bloggers in palace briefings. Welcome to Newsnight, Attorney Trixie.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening to you. Let's first talk about the new cabinet members, Clarita Carlos as National Security Advisor and Conrado Estrella for the Agrarian Reform Department. What made them qualify?
It's no secret about Professor Carlos's expertise. The national security is tied up with political concerns, both local and international relations. And so she seems to be quite qualified for the job. Other than that, the president-elect has simply exercised his discretion. Professor Carlos has, in fact, distinguished herself in her own field. And so that was the major consideration.
Mm-hmm. And for the other, former Congressman Estrella, party list representative.
Yeah. The same, his experience in the field as well as the contributions he has already made. These are general requirements of the president-elect. So at the same, it all falls in.
Pero Attorney, there are still some other posts that have yet to be filled, like yung mga importante ngayon. For example, health for pandemic, meron na bang kinoconsider for that? Also, Defense Department, Foreign Affairs.
Ma'am, we have, I understand that there are discussions ongoing about the choices for these positions. We also understand the concern of the public here. We're just really waiting for the final decision. So they have not given us any information as to when or who they're going to be.
For example, Attorney, yung health department, di ba, very crucial po yan. And then may mga lumulutang din na names. We have, for example, there's Dr. Ted Herbosa because he's with an advisor of the task force, no? May iba pa po bang, can you tell us that names that are being considered, especially for this one?
Ma'am, I really have no information on the names being considered.
Okay, how about for the others? Kasi earlier, si Professor Carlos was also, may report na she was being considered for Foreign Affairs. How about for that post, Attorney?
Likewise, ma'am, we really cannot, we do not have any information as to who are being considered for any of the positions.
Okay, moving on na lang to another topic. Dun sa inauguration, do you have any other information that you can give us with regards to the venue? Also, maybe yung invitations have already been sent out but to foreign leaders maybe?
What we do know is that invitations are already being I don't know if they're actually printed, but yes, they haven't been sent out at all yet. So we're waiting for that.
Can you tell us, for example, U.S. President Joe Biden, is he invited, or who others are on the list?
Well, even the guest list, we have no information on that. There are security considerations, so I hope you understand why we do not give out guest lists.
Okay, we get you. Kanina lang po si Mr. Marcos, the President-elect, met with U.S. Deputy Secretary Sherman. Can you tell us more about what they talked about?
Sorry, I really apologize, but the pronouncements on this one will be released by we're waiting for the clearance from the appropriate agencies with regard to what they exactly talked about. As you understand, diplomatic relations and diplomatic talks are of a confidential nature. So what we can, the best that we can do is wait for the agencies to clear them, and then we will give out a summary of what had been talked about. So we're still waiting for that.
Okay. Attorney, let me just go back to one of your statements about accrediting bloggers or vloggers. Can you give us more details about that? Ano po yung magiging consideration para, because we have the Malacanang Press Corps, di ba? So paano po yun? Will they be part of the Press Corps, or will that be a different group?
Yeah, let me clarify. To begin with, what we're going to do is to evaluate and reassess the existing policy. Because I'd like to point out there is already a policy, and it's in the form of a department order by the PCOO Secretary Martin Andanar. It had not been implemented, so what we're going to do is take a look at it, see if this is the right time to implement the policy. Do we have to make changes? If we're going to make changes, That means that we're going to accredit. If we're going to accredit, who can be accredited and what is the participation? So these are open right now for us to investigate, to study. But the timing is also something that we need to discuss and to decide on. So what's happening is an evaluation of the existing policy. So it's the national discussions on this policy on accreditation of bloggers, where all of these other details seem to be talked about. So let's talk about accreditation. Well, the accreditation process in the old policy required a certain number of followers, and now we're also talking about that if this should happen, and I would like to emphasize if this should happen, then we might also be looking at engagement of each of the bloggers. So we need to know if people are responding to their posts, to the information that they are giving out, and the kind of discussions that are ongoing. Well, not the kind, but for us, if you're able to elicit a response and interest from your audience, then that should also count.
But yung sinasabi po ng ibang critics na parang iba kasi yung standard when you say that you will be accrediting yung mainstream or yung traditional media na usual na nagko-cover po sa MPC, and then for the bloggers or the vloggers.
Well, like I said kasi, yung participation natin dito, hindi pa natin na-formulate. Halimbawa, isa yon, posible na kasama nila yung Malacanang press corps. Pero posible din na interviews lang with the president, posible din special events lang ang kino-cover nila, and so on. So kailangan pang i-discuss din yon. Kailangan may decision-making process pa tayo tungkol doon kung naaangkop sila doon sa particular situation. Angkop ba para sa bloggers na mag-cover ng mga press briefings? O dapat iniimbita lang sa particular event? Kapag lumalabas bang presidente, pwede ba na ilang isama? Yun po mga yon ay dinidiscuss pa natin at magiging bahagi ng ating bagong polisiya if we should decide na ito na po ang nararapat na oras na ma-include sila sa dissemination ng impormasyon ng PCOO.
Huli na lang siguro, incoming Secretary Trixie, ano po yung nakikita niyo or how do you envision yung relationship ng Malacanang with the media this time, with the new administration?
Well, the president-elect is a lot, a lot more formal than President Duterte. I'm not saying that anybody outweighs the other. They just have really different styles. But this is also, the president-elect is also a vlogger, and he still will continue with his vlogs, and so he will be engaging the public through his vlogs, through his social media platforms. So this is a little different, and I see that he's more, he is willing to explore all of these other platforms. He's not going to, totally disappear. He will still address the media, the trad media. But this is a president who will be participating in various platforms. So this is kind of, for me, a really cool thing.
Okay, thank you very much for joining us, the incoming Press Secretary Trixie Cruz-Angeles.